The meeting of the Planning and Zoning Workshop is now open at 6:01.
Need that statement.
And
Some members of the planning and zoning may participate.
Workshop is now open at 6:01.
I'm sorry, give me just a second. There you go. That's right.
Some members of the planning and zoning may participate via telephone or video conference. A quorum may or may not be physically present in the city council chambers. City citizens wishing to make comments should email dstrickland@evermanTX.net. Citizens' comments received prior to the meeting adjourned will be read to the council. Alright. Need to make approval of the prior minutes from February 1st, 2021.
Make a
One of the
motion.
members, motion to approve the minutes.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from the last meeting, February 1st, 2021.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We go into the discussion items. Capital Improvement Plan Workshop.
All right. First off, I had hoped to have the books ready for you this week, but the blizzard of 2021 kind of messed that up, and my schedule was not what it should have been this last week. So I'm going to be blunt and honest with you. I got nothing for you tonight to show you anyway, to review. So what I would like to do tonight is we talked last time on February 1st about giving you some homework and asking you to take a look around the city and bringing your ideas back to the table. So I'd like to just open up the floor tonight to you all and making sure that we incorporate your ideas, your desires, and the things that you'd like to see happen inside of Everman into that plan.
I didn't look around too much.
You didn't get out and skate around the city and take a look?
I do, well, when it comes to the streets and stuff,
Mhm.
in front of our house in Langley and Smith, maybe Donna's noticed it. The concrete there has gotten very deteriorated. When they rebuilt the Bowley roads, they didn't re-concrete that hard. And there's a water main is underneath there.
Are you referring to the curb or the
No.
sidewalk?
The center where they come together. It's the very center of where Langley and Smith come together.
Oh, the transition?
Right
There's
in the
a
middle.
concrete piece on the transition between the asphalt?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
There's a big, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Mhm.
Right.
That's not uncommon where we have an intersection where two streets meet, that there's a small strip of concrete there.
It's a large strip of concrete. And it's where the water mains were, where they changed from one side of the street to the other side of the street, the fire hydrants. They actually changed sides of streets. So it's kind of an important, what I'm saying, it's crumbling all up.
Okay.
I was going to ask about, you said they're going to change street signs. Does that include the stop signs and things like that need to be replaced?
Yeah, we're looking at upgrading all of our stop signs and repairing the ones that are dilapidated. The reflective is no longer reflective. Sun has baked them apart. Can barely read them, kind of a thing. And believe it or not, street signs has a lot to do with economic development because it's a curb appeal aspect. So not only does it provide for safer traffic enforcement, but it also provides for a better curb appeal to the residents of the city and things. So it actually enhances that overall when you have nicer signage and poles and things. And most people don't think of signs as being something that would actually help attract folks here, but it is. I mean, if you think of a nice park, you don't think of rusted, dilapidated, non-reflective street signs falling over. I mean, you think of nice signs. And so that's one thing we're looking to do all over the city with all of our signage is update it and replace it. Jeff's working with the COG right now to hopefully pursue a grant to help us out with that aspect.
I'd like to see 2 removed completely.
Okay, which two?
Says beware of deaf children on Smith and Langley. It was about close to 10 years ago. There was a family that lived there for about 3 months that had a deaf child, and we've had those signs up ever since. I mean, I understand, but it's just not necessary.
Okay. All right. What else?
Though I have, about me talking about the sign. I don't know how you would word it, but a better sign for the animal control to go off in there.
To know where it's
It's
at.
where they know where it's at instead of stopping at the houses, thinking that that's it. It
Yeah.
needs to have an arrow or something to tell them to go on up in there. It just says animal control, something, then it stops. It don't tell them that they have to go to the end of the
All the way
street.
past those
Right.
houses.
Houses, right, yeah.
It's still that way after all these years.
'Cause we have said, I've had several people come and they ask, stopping it. Well, is that the house over there? No, that's not the house. You have to go past the house.
Okay.
And one lady couldn't speak English and I couldn't speak Spanish. So I just kept pouring, pass, go past. Then I walked past the house and was pouring. To let her, she had to go to the end, the hours. Is it open all the time for the animals, that they could drop animals off, or is it certain hours?
No, so they have an on-call phone number that you can call up until, I believe, 8 o'clock at night. You can contact them by phone, and they're only there Monday through Friday during City Hall hours, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5.
Oh, okay.
And they closed on holidays.
Oh, okay.
So that's an easy one. What else you got?
I rode through Chambers Creek and Peppermill and those streets. They are kind of, they're in rough shape.
So the Chambers Creek neighborhood?
Yes.
Okay.
I rode through there. But I was just checking on the streets that was in our deal that we already had, and they are kind of in a bad situation. I thought Combine and Wisteria was bad, but no, just about all those are bad.
Columbine and Wisteria are pretty bad
But they,
at Southway.
it's Southway,
Yeah.
those, but
They're
Yeah. they're bad, but it's just basically that our traffic, where there's more traffic in Chambers Creek
yes,
than in those three streets.
roads are bad over there too.
Okay.
I had one other thing. It has to do with the walk, the bridge across the creek, the walk
Yes.
bridge.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
between Christie and Smith and
Is
Langley.
there any thought of replacing that?
There is now.
I mean, it is in pretty bad shape. I will come before the council again, I suppose, to talk about the creek being cleaned out again. Not behind us. The water flows beautifully, but I know you don't want to talk about that right now.
Oh, we can talk about that because that is an important one.
Okay, behind our houses on Smith, I mean
Mm-hmm.
on Langley and Christie, that water flows beautifully. There's no problems until you get past the bridge. Since 2018, they have not cleaned out whoever owns that property, and it's been told back and forth who does and doesn't, and he won't do this and won't do that. He should be fined, he should be made, whoever it is, made to at least clean up the weeds on either side and down the middle of that. If nothing for just danger, mosquitoes and animals and snakes. If for no other reason, I'm not worried about it flowing because I know the problem. I know how it all goes to
As far
Arlington
as
Lake. That's not my
I
concern.
understand the property owners that abut that creek, half of it is theirs and the other half is who live on Langley. So everybody's responsible.
Not
that
us,
part.
we're beyond the creek. I mean, we're beyond the bridge. I'm talking beyond the bridge. We're not responsible for beyond the bridge.
Right.
It's just people, whoever owns that property.
Okay.
And I
We can take a look
still,
at that.
they could at least clean it up. We did our job at one time. People got out there very worried that they were going to get in trouble
Yeah.
and cleaned up the ditches behind our house and behind
So it's
Johnson and all that.
their property owners.
But they were never made to clean up that.
No, I think I know who the owner is. We can get that taken care of.
And it's goes clear beyond the concrete road that they used to have. I mean, but that's, if they just get that part done, because it's so overgrown that the water can hardly flow through it. So,
What else?
Face all that.
Come on, man.
No,
You're the business mind here.
I have a couple things. Something I just stumbled upon a couple months ago in regards to what you were saying, the curb appeal, right? That, like, what the house numbers? I have when the whole DoorDash, Uber Eats, that whole thing started,
Yeah.
I've had a few drivers that they'll deny the Everman orders, right? And at first I thought, okay, maybe, it was random, but then I figured out that like there's a pattern, right? They deny the Everman orders because they have a hard time identifying the house that they're supposed to go to, right? And like for them, I mean, an extra minute of
Feel
knocking.
you on that one, I promise.
Yeah, I mean,
We're right there with you.
exactly. Yeah, and so
Yeah,
I was
2 a.m.
wondering,
is,
like,
it's impossible.
if there's, and I did a little bit of research, and I know that there's, the numbers on the actual sidewalk, like on the curb. And, Yeah. So I mean, that can help. I mean, you can also put the numbers on the mailbox, whatever it may be. But obviously it would be a lot for the city, to do to every single house. What I'm thinking that could help is some kind of some kind of a contest, right? Like if per every street you have like, oh, the most visual house or whatever, because I have some family that they spend hundreds of dollars a month on their flower beds. And I ask them, why would he spend? Oh, because we got first place in some kind of neighborhood competition that keeps them up there, right? So I mean, I don't know if the city might have that kind of budget to just go around and just stamp, right, the numbers on the streets. That's something that I just, because I read that report that the city had, the whole was like a 50-page.
Yeah, the annual report.
Yeah. And I noticed that, the big thing there was the taxes, right? The sales tax. And obviously, the more customers buying here from the, it just helps out everybody. And the second thing, I actually have a little printout here. Can I pass it around?
Yes.
With this whole COVID thing? It's just a 1-page thing, no big deal.
I have a question since he was talking about is there a certain place that you need the house numbers on the house?
So there's actually a fire code and a city ordinance that regulates that.
I was about to say.
That's what I'm asking. Is it a
It's
certain
just
place?
a matter of enforcing it, but
Where is it? Where should it be?
It would be in our,
Clearly distinguishable.
yeah, it would be in our city
Front side of
ordinance.
the house and a 2-inch letter.
Yeah.
At least 2 inches?
It has to be 2 inches or greater. It's clearly distinguishable from the front side. I can tell you, and I know Chief Spencer can agree, that uniformity would be amazing if we could have everybody actually do
On
it
their
the
curb.
side of their driveway or
Right.
their curb right there,
Curb.
just one singular place, because then you have somebody, when you get to that creative side, some people will, let's get fancy and let's put it on the brick and nice little cool letters, but usually those letters aren't reflective and they probably blend in with the brick. And then they put it on their mailbox or something like that. And now it's hard for us to identify it. If we have one uniform place right there on the curb or on the driveway, man, that would make our job so much easier.
Well, I propose we do that.
Right. No, it's a big
Yeah,
thing.
I
Like when
curb,
you,
we have ours on
Stuff
the,
curb.
but I don't know, I'm trying to think, I think we have them on the house too.
It could be a redundant thing, but
No, it's on the curb, on
Yeah.
the
Mine
driveway.
isn't on the curb.
I think it's on the house too, because I was always thought they should be on the house, that's what I always thought it should be. But you said the driveway is easier, well, not
it
easier,
would
but,
typically be easier.
oh,
I mean,
okay.
obviously you're gonna have cars that will kind of park in front of it sometimes, but there's always some extenuating circumstances, but too often than not, that you get lost on what did they put it on the post beside the door or next to the garage door? Did they do the black lettering on a brown brick, which makes it hard?
Yeah,
So it's nice to have black and white lettering or distinguishable colors right down the curb of the driveway.
Well, if you have it on this curb and cars in front of this one and one on that curb, it's in between
Oh, yeah,
there.
yeah.
oh, okay.
All right, so I'm real curious about this.
so you know what I thought, because I'm really into, taking the family outside as much as I can, just because when my daughter was at she was at Sunday school, this past yesterday, yeah, and she was telling me about it, and they put on there one of the questions that there was, what are you good at, right? And she said basketball, even though she's horrible, but hey, she thinks she's good, which is great. Basketball, reading, she's a really good reader, and playing on my iPad, right? And I thought, okay, that's not bad, and then she put on there, what do you like to do? Play on my iPad. So I try to get the family outside as much as possible. I mean, it's no like surprise that over the past few years, like the devices are stealing our attention more and more, right? And so I myself, I mean, we go to the trailhead at Trinity park. You know, they have a few playgrounds and obviously a large trail where we can go. She chases me around in her bike. But obviously, I mean, I'm not trying to build a whole Trinity Trail here. That's something that's pretty huge. But something that we've been doing for quite a while is going to these neighborhood fishing ponds, right? And I looked into it, and I mean, a lot of them are funded by the Texas Parks and Wildlife, right? And what it is that it can be like sometimes it's just like the smallest little pond. I mean, it's like it's ugly, it's like everything, but the days after they dump the fish into it, hundreds of people like gather around there, right? It's hard to get a spot, right? And you end up catching fish. That's the only way we'll catch fish. Otherwise, we end up with nothing. But it's tough. But yeah, I mean, I most
So do you know anything
recently-
about this program? I mean, do you know that they put in neighborhood fishing ponds?
Yeah, I mean, I know about this park right here up on Hemphill, Greenbrier or something like that, I think it's called.
It's a park up there called Greenbrier.
Yeah. That's where I've been going for years. And for that one specifically, I think it's like a dual partnership between Lockheed and City of Fort Worth. But if you go to that website, that's a QR code there. If you go to that website, you'll see at the bottom of the page, you'll see all of these sponsors, right? And this is the thing about this is that it's all of Texas, right? It's not like specific to like, you know, like, oh, this park, only these people are going to sponsor. No, it's a whole thing. Obviously, there is going to be some legwork in the beginning, right? Like making sure that you have the right water, the right bacteria, the whole, you know, thing for the pond. But I think that once it's something that, you know, you get going there won't be much cost after that. And like I said, I mean, it's just something that we've been doing for a while, and it might help, you know, people be outside a bit more. It might, you know, add something a little bit different to the city.
I'd rather have a pond than a soccer field. I think the old neighborhood we lived in, the summer house out in Morningstar, it was like that.
Oh, really?
And they do this program out there.
Where's that?
Morningstar, it was over at 187.
Okay.
One of the newer, and it's HOA, and, you know, there's a lot of incurred costs that go along with
Right.
having an amenity like that, but it was a big hit, and there was hundreds of people out there when they would do the tournaments. I mean, it's big. And issue you run into is you get people that are out of towners that come in because they just want to come fish and get the fish, clean them,
Right.
and eat them. So that was the only issue that we ran into. But
Yeah, and the thing is that like if you go because if you go to this website, like around here in Tarrant County, there's about that are sponsored by their program. I think there's about 7 of them, right? But if you Google fishing pond, you'll get like at least 40, right? So there's a lot of fishing ponds like that are just local, you know, just 100% just sponsored by that. But there's also program like ponds that are sponsored by this,
Mhm.
right? And I think that, I mean, with the whole mission of the capital improvement, I mean, we could, you know, since you're so good at writing essays, you could do an essay for the Texas parks, you know, and
at 72 pages again for the safer grant.
72 pages?
Energy grant, 72 pages. So
really,
it took me a month to do all those
goodness.
grants, and didn't
Wow.
get out of 4 of them, didn't get awarded one.
really, not yet.
Stiff competition.
It's
Yeah.
coming. It's coming.
I like it. So let me ask you this. Are you being specific to a fishing pond? Or are you being specific towards you would like to see more community engagement style parks and events available in the city?
I think both.
Both?
Right.
Okay.
But for this, yeah, specifically to the pond. But just getting the community. I mean, it is hard. Obviously, there are a few events that we have. I mean, there's the events committee and all of that, but just getting like I know that Fort Worth has a really popular. I don't think they had it this past year. They call it Mayfest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got canceled this year.
Yeah,
They
but
probably canceled this year. Art Fair.
and I mean something like that. Obviously, it's hard to compare to a huge city like that, but just seeing, you know, what we can learn from events like that just bring people out. You know, you go to Mayfest. I mean, there's nothing crazy going on. but there's thousands of people that show up, and it's just a good way to get to know, people around the community. And like I said, I'm just a big advocate for just being outside, just walking a bit more. If we could, like get some kind of a trail system going. But I mean, with the improvements that we got going on in this park already, that's something that I think is going to be really good. Just having a better pathway, like more protected path for the families. But that's what I got for now.
Okay. What else?
I like this. So anyone can go on this and check into it to find where these are located? the parks?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
it's like it has a little location, and there are specific dates when they
Yeah.
fill it, and so obviously typically the day after in the morning, it's pretty packed.
I have some grandboys that would love going fishing.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. There's nothing like the first time a little kid catching a fish. It's pretty cool.
It's a good one-stop shop for game wars come out. Where's fish line?
So this is the only city in Tarrant County I've joined a game warden in pursuit. Believe it or not, we do have game wardens here. All right, what else? If I gave you $1 million, where would you want to spend it? What would you want to see done? I mean, sky's the limit. What's your vision?
Fire department.
I'm kidding. A lot needs to be done all the way around.
I was at in front of the house that was burning down the 11th or the 8th. No, I think it was the 11th. It was on Gristmill.
On Gristmill.
Yeah, a couple weeks. I had never been that close to a house fire. That was pretty traumatizing. And we were 3 houses down, but I was my aunt, and then they called me over. They're like, "What should we do? Should we leave? Should we, there's nothing you can do." So that really changed my perspective with what you guys do, because it was, I mean, yeah, you see it in the movies and everything, but then you see it right there.
It's different.
Yeah.
When I saw it, I thought about your presentation of all the fire equipment. And I thought, yeah, that ladder would have come in handy, I think, on this one. But
So I might have said something about that on the radio.
no, no, that's what I thought when I saw it. Because it was a lady that had it on Facebook, and she was talking, and I saw it. And I said, I know this neighborhood. I said, this is over in Chambers Creek.
That's why.
And I could think about him standing there presenting all this, and I said, that would have come in handy, I think. Because it was windy and all.
You can see hose lines doing this over the house, because even if you have the one on top of the fire, you still can't get it up and over.
Yeah,
Only one way to do that.
And then I thought all the different ones that had to come out, and I thought about how you said it works together, all your units and different ones work together. And thanks to you, Chief, all the updates you did on the water.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.
We tried to keep people informed.
I have a question out of curiosity in regards to the capital improvement plan. Would it, because I know that, a lot of I don't know if we made it, a lot easier for you in regards to ranking them, since I think a good 95% of them are urgent, right? So I don't know if we should we instead rank them in terms of place them.
So,
For example, actually we have to choose, this one, is it going to go over this or over
yeah,
that?
and we may have to get to that point once I get it compiled and we can actually look at it in more of a tangible aspect. I
Right.
think that'll make it a little bit easier. But you have to remember that even though many of them are urgent, a lot of them are classified differently. So some of them are going to have easier funding opportunities through grant funding and things like that. So those
Right.
are obviously going to get funded first.
Okay.
Also, street projects may be funded from street tax fund. I'm sorry. Water projects can be funded through the water tax fund or water revenue. The police department, any capital projects there can be funded through the crime control district fund. So we have different funds that have to be allocated towards specific departments and operations. So that also kind of makes it a little easier to divvy it up.
Okay.
So I know a lot of them were ranked urgent, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Okay.
When it comes to the items that are going to be funded solely out of general fund that don't have a fund that could help allocate funds towards that, then yes, those we would probably have to go through and kind of rank and decide which ones are going to be the most important. But as far as like the street projects and those are funded through a whole different fund. I don't think there's a need to go through and rank those.
All right.
What, since we had all this boil your water thing, what is the deal with us? No, my neighbor was saying, oh, we get Fort Worth water. And I thought, well, do we? I know part of the time we have. And part of the time-
So we
What is
are,
why did we,
oh, you're good.
just explain it.
So we do have a connection to Fort Worth Water. However, we are not dependent on their water. So we have 4 water wells currently that feed our water tower, which is located by the high school. The reason why we had to implement the boil water notice was because all 4 water well sites had major catastrophic issues: frozen pipes, frozen chlorine treatment lines. We had a Paluxy well site 6-inch main line break. We had booster pumps that failed due to electrical because of the freezing temperatures. So we had catastrophic failures at all these pumps, so much that we weren't able to keep our tower fed. And our system is what they call a gravitational fed system, meaning we have a water tower that gravity keeps that pressure up, because that's why the tower is so high. The gravity keeps the pressure up, and the booster pumps at the different well help boost that pressure around the city that creates your water pressure. The 4 well sites bring that water in and feed that tower to keep that tower full. So because we had the well pump failures and the tower was draining, that's why we had to issue the boil water notice. We do have a tie to Fort Worth system, and we could have opened what they call the Fort Worth vault, which would have fed more water into our system, but that wouldn't have solved our problem because Fort Worth was also under a boil water notice.
Yeah.
So the easier solution for us was to not open that vault, because we get a water bill from Fort Worth when we do open that vault. And you think our water prices are high? Look at Fort Worth's water prices. We would have had to have paid that bill. So our long-term goal is to get to a point where we can be entirely standalone and not rely on a backup tie into the city of Fort Worth. And we're getting closer to that. This additional well site that's going in now is going to help us get closer to that. And our engineer is telling us that one more additional well on top of that will allow us to be completely independent from a Fort Worth system. So yes and no, we do have a tie into Fort Worth, but we are not relying upon their system, and we don't have Fort Worth water.
And so I was going to tell him, well, no, we don't, but I didn't know what, he wouldn't believe me.
So
But I want to throw this out here as a big kudos to Chief. Because of, and the water guys, because of their diligence, because they were basically on the clock, around the clock during this last week, and how hard they were working. Our water system, I know it's hard to believe this, was probably one of the best that we had in the region for being able to provide what we needed at the time, especially for fire protection and whatnot. So, I mean, that's a big kudos to those guys, because they did bust their tail and kept it, putting Band-Aids on it, trying to make it work. And everybody around us was having even bigger catastrophic failures. At one point, we were notified that we would possibly be backing up Arlington even, because they were in such a bad. So if that puts in perspective.
yeah, we were on standby for several cities around us with our tanker on the fire department.
Wow.
But yeah, no, the guys did a good job. Our water
They
system
did.
altogether was down for roughly 6 hours only. The problem you run into is a regulation problem. Once you issue the boil water notice, before you can lift it, you have to make sure that you comply with testing, pressure, and all kinds of things. So although we got our system back up and operational in 6 hours, we couldn't necessarily remove the boil water notice until we complied with all those regulations and showed TCEQ the water was safe and compliant. So that's what took the longest. That took longer than addressing the water issues. We had low
Wasn't
pressure.
that
We had
big a
low pressure
deal.
for 6 hours. After that, our pressure was good, volume was good. It was just a matter of still fixing things for treatment and so forth, and making sure the water was safe.
Thank you.
What other issues? What else would you like to see done around the city or improved on, services wise, appearance wise? Are there certain business types that you'd like to see come in, entertainment types you'd like to see come in? Because it's not just the city council that feeds off this, but as a planning and zoning commission, this is your opportunity to give your input. So folks like EDC board members are going to read this CIP. Other commissions are going to read this CIP. The county commissioner is going to read this CIP. So there's outside influences that'll come in to see what opportunities might be available too. So when I say the sky's the limit, I mean, don't
Oh, wow.
Don't
I
just
didn't-
think
I
about your
didn't know that.
neighborhood.
Oh, I
What
didn't know.
Well,
opportunities?
if you were here a long time
I
ago, we
just-
liked the Dairy Queen and we liked the Pizza Inn and we liked the drugstore.
Okay.
All of those things we used to
Pizza
have.
Inn. Oh, I loved it when we had the Pizza Inn.
The Sonic, we used to have Sonic.
Oh, there was Sonic?
Oh, yeah.
No way. Oh,
Yeah, I was
wow.
gonna say you're trying to bring in new restaurant business when you got a
No,
restaurant.
I mean, that's fine. I
I'm
mean,
sorry. It's just
no, no.
Don't bring in the
Traffic
competition.
brings more
A
traffic.
drugstore would
You
be
know?
nice. though.
Okay, a drugstore. That's a good one to list in there. What else? What other
Yeah.
services might our
Dan
citizens need that
Meyer
aren't
was the
available?
old one.
Yeah, the
It was his
drugstore.
drugstore.
Are there any other services that you think our citizens might need that aren't available?
More for like professional services, like dentist, doctor, chiropractor. I mean,
Not
I hate going out of town for everything. I go to Fort Worth for everything, and they take all my money. It's a big bill we have to pay, and why? I mean, sure, they might have a bit of maybe bit of trouble getting started, right? But I think that once they get a good customer base, I mean, any office, any kind of medical office,
Clinic,
or
one of those clinics that they have.
right. I mean, you could also, do a
There's
clinic
plenty of
that's
people
more
around here
accessible
now.
without insurance. Yeah, I mean, anything really, but at the same time, those are typically medical, like office parks, right?
Okay.
That lease out to that. That's something that I've
Yeah,
been
with
personally
children especially.
thinking.
I think it goes along with needing that storefront in order, because typically when you do see those urgent cares, you do see the satellite Baylor, Scott and White,
Yeah.
Family Health, something to that
Cook
effect.
children's.
Those are, they typically do lease out of a storefront. And so finding that avenue to get the contractors in here to purchase the property and do that storefront that would then be leased out to those, because you're not going to get a Baylor, you're not going to get JPS to come and say, well, let's build our entire building and own this lot. They don't want to do that.
Right.
Because they're just going to lease. So finding that avenue to get that storefront for them.
Yeah, I remember good 5 years ago when there was like an explosion of all these urgent care, like all over the place. I remember like it was just, I don't know, but there was some kind of new law or something in Texas that happened, but out of nowhere I just started seeing all of these mini emergency rooms, I like to call, and I mean, we go to the one right here on Little, right? Whenever somebody cuts a finger or something, we have to rush them there. And those things, I mean, if they get 3 cases a day, they're profitable, right? So, yeah, just more medical facilities. Myself and the small property that we have, that's something that I'm actually considering on doing, just because it'll bring good traffic, right? Because the last thing we want is just to have like your typical rundown strip mall. Right, with half leased, and you attract the wrong kind of crowd. That we don't want that. So something more, just a little bit different.
Lobby style.
Right.
Have you ever talked about the bus line? I know the T one, but transportation wise?
So yeah, transportation wise, the bus conversation has come up many times in council meetings. Most recently, we talked about this about 2 months ago. The problem with bus, especially with the T, is price. It's a flat rate service regardless of the number of residents that ride it. So the cost of it is roughly $250,000 to $300,000 a year to the city. And there are better alternatives out there that we can research and join in on. One of those alternatives that we're looking at right now is actually an on-demand transportation service, which is going to fit more for our community. So it's not a typical bus route where the bus runs the same route at the same time every single day. An on-demand service is a service that the city would pay for that's available to citizens that qualify, and it's free to those citizens that qualify. And those citizens essentially use an app and request that service just like an Uber driver.
Okay.
So it would show them, and it would show up in a marked vehicle. That's the T transportation vehicle or something along those lines, and actually provide that transportation only when needed. That cost is significantly less to the city, and it doesn't provide that not so aesthetically appealing transportation service with the bus stops and so forth. They'll come to the house and pick you up. They'll bring you back to the house. It's an on-demand type service. and available when needed. So I think it's going to fit a little bit more our needs than what a true bus service would fit. The other problem with a bus service is that we would get a lot of traffic coming from outside the city into our city just to specifically to ride that bus. And that's something that we've wanted to shy away from too.
Yeah.
So, but transportation is something we've looked at before and are actively looking at right now because there's grant funds out there to pay for it. So
Would you happen to know if that new community will have sidewalks?
hey, Mike, do you know the answer to that one?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Mike's here.
Yeah, he's like the shy guy in the back, just staying quiet, waiting to strike. Mike, can you hear me?
He's probably out.
He may have stepped away. I think it will. I don't know for a fact that it will. Now I know
Okay.
that they're going to provide all the infrastructure within the community, within that neighborhood,
Yeah.
including water and streets and so forth.
Because typically the city's in charge of the 10 feet. Is that right? The first 10 feet or?
We have a 10-foot easement.
Yeah.
So we don't maintain that, but we do have an easement to come in there and
Oh,
put in
okay,
sidewalks or place in water lines, access, that kind of stuff when needed. The property owner is in charge of maintaining that.
Okay.
That 10-foot easement. And that's actually getting ready to come. That hasn't come before P&Z. Or no, is that going before P&Z or council? The variance.
Yeah, it came through us last time.
Oh, it already came. Yeah, it did come.
The
Okay.
lot,
Yeah, the
yeah,
lot
we
size.
did that
Okay,
last
we did.
Yeah,
that. See, that's how my brain scrambled. I apologize.
you've been busy.
Okay. So yeah, the lot sizes have already been approved and taken care of. So I don't know where we're at in that phase, but I think there's sidewalks in there. Mike, are you back yet by chance? Oh, he texted me. Hold on.
Okay.
Are there sidewalks going in the new neighborhood?
Oh, he can hear us, but we can't hear him.
Yes, there are sidewalks.
Oh, nice.
That's
Okay.
nice.
That's good.
Wanna go back
I'm
in
very
there.
interested in getting a home there.
Are you
looks-
interested in buying a house?
Yeah. It looks. I mean, if there's sidewalks, we can, take them out on the bike.
Just keep
that's
them
a
out-
big-
out of the street.
Okay.
Yeah.
What else? Any other ideas?
Those two I have.
Are you gonna give them like a list of what you're discussing before, a list of the projects that are listed on CIP that are?
I'm hoping to give them the actual CIP, the draft copy of the CIP.
Well, specifying which one is out of individual funds or what's actually gonna be coming out of the general fund.
Yeah.
I think that now that we know that our we cover more than just, because I was under the assumption that we cover, like street, what's been presented to us pretty much.
Yeah.
But I think now that we all know that we can, suggest anything or have an opinion on anything, I think we'll be back with more.
Yeah.
And that's okay. So like we talked about, the CIP is a fluid document. This first draft is just a draft. It's something we're going to approve and give guidance to the council on for this next upcoming budget. So we're going to start the budget process for next fiscal year. Typically, we start that in June-ish. So we'll start that budget process in June, and we're going to be consulting the CIP as we review that budget process. It just kind of sets the roadmap of where the city council should be going and where they should be directing their funds, and what the community input, you being the community, you're representing the community on the P&Z board. And in addition to the community input that they receive from their constituents, will make the decision on where those funds go. And they use that CIP as the guide for that to make sure that those issues are addressed. So it's a fluid document. We can revisit it year round. You can bring ideas in, talk about how we need to incorporate it. We can change ranking on things. And as we get different funding for different projects, we'll kind of start just checking things off that list. So it's going to be an ever evolving document that'll go forward.
We're not gonna incorporate any new apartments in Everman, are we?
We don't have anything zoned for multifamily other than what's already existing, right? Yeah, there's,
Yeah,
so unless you rezone something to allow for multifamily,
I don't think so.
you have that power.
We got
not
enough
I.
of that
Oh,
stuff.
the zoning, that's the other part of it,
Oh,
right?
we
The
have this
zoning.
power for rezoning?
Yes,
Oh,
you are the
zoning.
Planning and Zoning Commission. So all zoning changes and applications, a property owner can apply for a zoning change. That zoning change comes before you. So with that being said, we actually have a couple of items that we're going to be working on here in the very near future. One of those is we've talked very recently about, because we've had problems historically. I don't want to, problems is the bad word. I shouldn't use that word, especially with you here. We've had
Yeah.
confusion in the past regarding food trucks.
No, problems
Oh.
is good. I mean, yeah, I mean,
So when it comes to food trucks, the city does not have, it doesn't allow food trucks within the city. We don't have anything within our planning and
Oh.
zoning ordinance that allows food trucks.
Uh-huh.
We've had multiple business owners, some of which have turned very successful, especially when they built brick and mortar. Some of which
no, and
are-
it was
very
it was a
successful.
good push, you know, because I mean, yeah, it was a very bad intersection,
Yeah.
right? It was very, and I mean, yeah, at first it was, you know, I would see Donna, Jeff, I'd be like, oh no, what happened? You know, but you know, it forced us to do better. We didn't think we were gonna get out of that food truck, right? And but then again, the you know, something that we came to the city with is that, I mean, because the food truck is what attracts certain people, you know, like especially Hispanics, you know, they see a food truck for some reason. I mean, even to this day, I'm like, okay, let me go. Right? It might be the most horrible food ever, but for some reason, you need to try it. Right? It's like a weird thing. But so I mean, we got our start there. But I knew that if we, you know, that if we built a brick and mortar, you know, it would be hard, but it was a good push.
Well, you seem pretty successful now.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's, you know, it's a good way for some businesses to start, but
yeah,
it has its pros and cons.
With that, you know, our ordinance has never had any guidance for food trucks. We have a fee for it for some reason, even though our zoning doesn't allow it anywhere. So we have some other folks that have shown interest in wanting to bring food trucks in, and the city council is not against food trucks, but they don't want food trucks just freely roaming all over the place. So we've kind of talked about this and what's the best way to allow it, because it can attract, like you said, people to come to our city. And the idea that we've come up with that we're actually looking to present to you here in the very near future is the city actually has some property here on Ray Street. We're going to take it before EDC because EDC actually owns that property. And with their permission, we'd like to use this property to remodel it into kind of a food truck court, so to speak. And we would rezone that from, it's currently zoned as C1 commercial, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, it's currently zoned as C1 commercial. And we would therefore rezone it to CF, which is community facility. Your city hall, your fire station, police department, schools, parks, those kinds of things are zoned CF. And the presentation that we're going to bring before you all, as long as EDC agrees to allow that property to be used for that, would be to rezone that to CF and then amend our zoning ordinance to allow food trucks with a special use permit inside any property zone CF. So then food truck operators, as long as they have their food handler's license and permits and registrations and all that kind of stuff, can come up and get a special use permit and operate a food truck out of any CF zoned area. So if we have a special event at the park, we could allow them to operate it at the park. This would be a year-round operable site that they could bring in. The reason why we're looking at using this site is because it's directly across from Pittman Park.
Yeah.
That will help attract folks to our parks. We have a brand new facility going in across the street for the City Hall Annex. Our splash pad is getting fixed and hopefully operational. We're doing some beautification to our park. We have the Memorial Park going in. So the hope is we're trying to bring people in, and not just bring people in to visit our park, but bring people in to visit our park and maybe even have an option to grab something to eat while they're here inside of our parks. It's kind of this is going to be kind of a trial thing. We'll see how it goes, but it may be something that blows up to other options and offers more business opportunities to some of our locals. Because we do have some brick and mortar restaurants that also have food trucks, like Tacos Oasis and Longoria's Barbecue and Hickory Stick Barbecue and things. So some of our
Hickory Stick,
local restaurants may want to come over for special events and
Hickory
participate.
Stick is Everman, right?
Yes.
Okay. You know, it would be helpful, at least to me, if I could understand what's a CF this and what's.
So the CF is just the abbreviation.
I
It
know,
means
but I
community
mean, to
facility.
understand which areas are what.
Oh, so you want a zoning map?
Yeah.
We can get you that.
You know, I know that's, okay.
It's
I can
also
put it
available
I'll
on our
put it
website,
here.
but yeah, we can get you one.
But you're saying this place you're talking about is right up here off of
It's where the old apartments used to be that burned down.
Oh.
In between the two sections, there's a lot of land right there
that
that the
area
city
right
owns.
there in front of the church and, I think
Yep.
between the church and, oh,
Yep.
okay. Yeah, that would be a good spot, huh?
The other one is we do have an application that's coming in for a rezoning from residential to heavy industrial. And that's going to be part of this industrial facility that's going in over here off of Wichita. There's a 17-acre tract that they're wanting to rezone for heavy industrial here within the city. So that rezone will be coming before y'all as well. And that's something that we would recommend to approving. It's not going to be, I think they were looking at a mat facility, if I remember right, last time. So it's going to be some sort of distribution facility, but that's a very large tax base potential increase for the city, and it'll be good for us. And they're going to put in the infrastructure for it as well. So, but those two things will be coming up probably this next month, I think, in March. And
I have a question.
we'll be
It may
talking
not
more
be-
about it then.
So when the event board was talking about doing that food truck, we would have been breaking the law.
No, you can allow food trucks with a
Oh,
variance.
okay.
Yeah, you can, well, the city council can allow food trucks with a variance. They can provide a variance and allow certain things.
Oh, okay.
So like food truck events, special events, as long as city council approves it, no, you're not breaking the law.
Oh, all right.
But we don't have a special use permit process at all within our zoning ordinance. So as it stands right now, they're not allowed to regularly operate in any zoning ordinance within the city. We don't have a zoning for it.
And I guess they have to be regulated by the states for you to approve them and all that sort, you know about it. that
Yeah,
sort of
yeah, it's
thing.
a,
Yeah,
it's
you
a
have to have
process.
your health
Yeah, the
food
county, the
license.
county is the one that handles the public health department will take care of the food handlers permits and things. So they have to get their certain licenses through the health department. They have to get their licenses and sales tax certificates and stuff through the Texas Comptroller's office. And so there's a lot of different steps on state, county, and local that they got to take care of. But it's not overly complicated. But there are steps that they have to take to operate their business, just like any restaurant does. Cool. Anything else?
Well, I guess I need to ride around the city more.
Well, next week, I hope to have the draft prepared for you guys and we can start reviewing it and confirm that everything's ranked and maybe hopefully approve that draft next week.
I was wondering, just looking at this thing here,
Uh-huh.
how's it going? Is it going according to,
Which one?
oh, I don't know, all of it, it says started in January,
Of the
anticipation start and completion
Uh,
on different things.
Yeah, so the fire station it got delayed about a month and that was due to processing and just meeting engineering and all that stuff. So we're looking to start that one here in March. The annex will start, I think we were targeting June, if I remember correctly, on the annex. I'm trying to think of what other projects are on there. All of the infrastructure projects related to the water system and wells, those are all on target and still looking
Okay.
good. Most of those don't start until the spring, exactly for what happened last week. God forbid we start a water project, have the ground dug up and we get a hard freeze. I thank God we haven't started any of those yet because that'd have been a nightmare that would have caused a lot more problems. Hopefully that was the last freeze of the year, but normally they don't like to start water projects until the spring as things start to warm up. Fort Worth is on schedule as far as the sewer line replacement that's going to come down. And we're looking to tie the Enon water line project in with that sewer replacement project so they get done pretty close together as to cause the least amount of impact on the traffic control during that time. So I think for the most part, most of those projects are on schedule. The fire station did get delayed about a month, which may later impact the annex project, maybe a month as well. It just kind of depends. We'll have to see how it goes on construction phase. But other than that, everything else seems to be trucking right along.
Well, you know, I got to thinking about the race project, you know, from Enon to Everman Parkway, but then it dawned on me, it's worse right out here, but you have it down here, the North Race. Is that what that street?
Yeah, so we're looking right now at North Race from Enon to Bell Street.
Okay,
And the reason why we're looking at Enon to Bell Street rather than South Race from Enon to Everman Parkway is because when it comes time to redo that section of road, I would really like to address the bridge issue at the same time. I don't want to redo the road and then come in a year later and address the bridge issue and then have to redo the road again because we fixed the bridge. The city has been kind of notorious in the past for doing things kind of backwards sometimes, like repairing a road and then coming in a couple years later and fixing the water lines underneath the road and having to patch it. I don't want to do that if we don't have to. So that's kind of why South Race isn't on there yet, is just because of the bridge
Well,
issue.
yeah, I know,
We really need to address that bridge on South
what I
Race.
mean is that we already talked about it, but then I noticed this was talking about North Race, because that was, I didn't realize it. You already had that in the project.
Yeah. North Race is from Enon to
Bell.
Bell and Wichita. And what city council actually most recently approved was a potential traffic pattern change to make Race Street from Trammell to Bell a one-way northbound. And then Wichita from Bell to Trammell a one-way southbound. So it would almost turn this section of roadway here into a little square that drives around with parking on the interior, on the park side, all the way around. That'll add over 150 parking spaces around our park for us to adequately host larger events, potentially putting maybe a stage in the park so we can have a concerts and things out there, making it better for businesses to want to come in because they're going to have more parking if we decide to get any kind of C1 neighborhood commercial style businesses along Race Street. Just kind of make it an easier traffic flow and pattern, almost turning this into like a small town square that you would normally see.
Interesting.
That'd be nice.
I hope so. If it's not, y'all can blame me in a couple of years because that was my
I think
idea.
it would
so.
be nice to have it,
I
have
did
it
too. I think
kind of
that
a circle.
Yeah, the other hope too is to limit the safety issues that we've had here at Wichita, Bell, and Race, where those three intersections come together. That's a horrible intersection. We work a lot of accidents there
Really?
because vehicles don't necessarily signal when they're going left onto Race Street, and those people
Wow.
pulling out of that stop sign right there, we get a lot of collisions there.
Mm.
So there were some safety issues there as well, in addition to the parking addition and just adding a better traffic flow all the way around. We'd be able to eliminate the stop sign there.
You know, the events like we had with the Halloween drive-through.
Yes.
That would have helped with that. Wow,
All right. Anything else?
you put in some hours. Well, all of you put in some hours. I'll be working.
All right.
I think
That's it.
meeting
Oh,
closed.
okay.
What else you got?
Anything else?
No.
I call this meeting adjourned. He's
All
not
right.
here.
All right.